Shabbat shalom, everyone. The philosopher and education reformer John Dewey wrote over 90 years ago, "We do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience." Toward that end, I am honored and grateful that this weekend we are starting and ending Shabbat here at CBST, joined with two great self-reflective teachers of our generation. New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, who will speak right after services tonight, and tomorrow night, Dean of the Law School of Tel Aviv University, Professor Yishai Blank, who will speak tomorrow at 8:45 right before our Slichot service. We do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. And this is the season for reflecting on experience. This Jewish month of Elul is time for Cheshbon HaNefesh, the weeks in which, in case we forgot to do it all year, Jewish tradition reminds us quite plainly to account for ourselves. This is what Cheshbon HaNefesh means, accounting for ourselves. In less than 2 weeks, we will welcome the first day of Tishrei as the zodiacal sign of Libra comes in and mark the Jewish New Year. And we will think about weighing our strengths and our shortcomings on Libra's balance, one against the other. This week's Torah portion, Tavo, begins with an accounting as well. Tavo describes an ancient ritual of first fruits. It seems that thousands of years before there was something called two-factor authentication, people had to walk into the temple with a basket of fruits and then recite a special formula, identifying themselves, credentialing themselves. Arami Oved Avi. My father, my ancestor, was a wandering Aramean. That ancestor went down to Egypt. Our people grew numerous. We were oppressed. And God redeemed us from there and brought us to an amazing, beautiful land. This ancient ritual is an accounting of where we came from, and today it is actually customary to read it on the night of the Passover Seder, situating ourselves in Jewish memory. Every time we formally pray, there is a bit of accounting. Like the ancient ritual of the first fruits coming into the temple, the words of the Amidah also credential us before God to some degree. We step into God's presence and reintroduce ourselves to Hashem as the God of our ancestors. We might name them one by 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 one. I think that is the 9 we mention here at CBST. We're credentialing ourselves in a way through our yichus, through our connections, our relationships across time, even our relationships between this world and the next. So Pesach and Shavuos remind us to ask ourselves, who am I? Where did I come from? What does the collective Jewish memory of the Exodus and standing at Mount Sinai mean in my story? But during the Yamim Noraim, during this season, we ask a different kind of who am I question. Not who am I necessarily in the collective, but who am I, like right here, right now? And then when we've answered that question for the first time to ourselves, then we can ask it again. But really, who am I? And ask ourselves the question again and again. This, I think, is what Rabbi Jack Reamer means when he says that in this season we need to ask ourselves hard questions. This is the time for truth. And the more we ask ourselves, who am I, the more we can get closer to that truth, which is sometimes hard to confront. Who am I? How much time did I waste in the year that has now gone? Who am I? Did I fill my days with life, or were they empty? Who am I? Was there love inside my home, or was the affectionate word left unsaid? Who am I? The kind deed Did I perform it or postpone it? Who am I? The unnecessary jibe. Did I say it or hold it back? Who am I? Did I live by false values? Did I deceive others? Did I deceive myself? We might not like all of our answers to these questions, and that is what makes them hard. Cheshbon HaNefesh is not automatic, but learning can begin, thank you, Dewey, when we reflect. And the truer we are to ourselves, the more we can examine what the gap looks like between perception and reality, between who we think we are and how we have actually behaved. The more we do that, the more we can make real change. We do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. What can accountability look like? First, we do not have to do it alone. Each of us can have a Cheshbon HaNefesh Chavruta partner, if you want. Someone with whom we can reflect and who won't just let us off the hook, but won't act like a jackass either. I think my favorite practical model of Cheshbon HaNefesh and Cheshbon HaNefesh with a partner and in a community is based at Beit Teshuvah in Los Angeles. Beit Teshuvah's mission is to heal broken souls and save the lives of those wrestling with addiction by providing integrated care in a community setting. When I visited Beit Teshuvah a few years back with some colleagues, I quickly came to understand that whether or not we have personally struggled with addiction, every one of our souls is broken in at least one way or another. And knowing that helps us create empathy, cultivates our empathy for one another. Among Beit Teshuvah's multi-pronged approach is a structured process of Cheshbon HaNefesh, a step-by-step process that's actually articulated, at least it was a few years ago, on a worksheet, a printed worksheet that we got to work on visiting Beit Teshuvah, and that people worked on there, and we worked on there with Cheshbon HaNefesh, Chavruta partners. Part one of the process, truth. Truth. When and how did I miss the mark? And what was my justification in the moment for this action? We often say that hindsight is 20/20. So this is an opportunity to try to get back into our heads at what we might call a bechira point, an opportunity for a choice that was right in front of us, and in retrospect, we're so clear that we made the wrong choice at that moment. When and how did I miss the mark? What was my justification in that moment for acting how I did? Part two, effect. Who was impacted? How were they impacted? We remind ourselves that no matter how well-intentioned we were, our chataim, the words and deeds through which we have missed the mark, still have negative impacts. We bear responsibility for the consequences of our own actions, even if they are unintended, even if they are unknown to us. Part three, responsibility. What was learned? What's the plan for not repeating? What's the plan for changing, for growing? Did we make a decision without having all the information? Did we not treat someone with the fullness of their humanity? Should we have remained silent when we used words that turned out to be hurtful? Should we have spoken up because the effect of our silence was not neutral, but actually complacent? What was learned? What's the plan? And this idea of starting with truth and going to effect and then responsibility is an analogous process when we think about our mitzvot, when we think about the ways in which we really hit the bullseye and have done well, because we should reflect on that too and learn and be sustained and grow in these behaviors. I like the worksheet because sometimes it helps to write things down. We'll do some of that at Slichot tomorrow night, a preview, reflecting on the year. And sometimes it helps to say it out loud, both the actions that we should be proud of and those we regret. Maybe, most importantly, it means reflecting once again when we're faced with a similar situation and act differently. Really stopping and noticing that we made a different choice. We do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. Formal Jewish prayer might start with our introducing ourselves to God based on the merits of our ancestors. But what if we imagined it the other way around? Sure, when we recite the Amidah, we have an opportunity each time, 3 times a day, more on Shabbat and holidays, not just to reintroduce ourselves to God, to rely on that yichus of unearned privilege or maybe even blame throughout the generations, but we also have an opportunity to step toward God and reintroduce God to ourselves. Reintroduce God to ourselves. We can spend some extra time this season reminding ourselves who we have been, what is expected of us, who we want to be right now, and how we plan to get there. Shabbat Shalom.